Yo, what's going on, YouTube, and welcome to Goal Line Hockey. It's Kevin Forte, and today we have a really interesting topic as we're going to discuss the recent rumors here over the last couple of weeks about the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Detroit Red Wings making a pretty massive trade. Now, again, this is all speculation, this is all rumors, but this is definitely something that's been around now for a couple of weeks, and it's been kind of lingering to the point where I have to make a video about it. So we're going to discuss the rumors about Seider potentially being the starting package for the Toronto Maple Leafs in exchange for William Nylander potentially heading to Hockeytown. So we're going to discuss that today. So first off, we're going to take a look at the Toronto Maple Leafs and the reason why they would be looking to trade William Nylander. So there's a couple of big reasons. Obviously, Brad Treliving named the next general manager of the team, and you're going to assume that he's going to look to put his stamp on this franchise, making some kind of movement here this summer. The Leafs have been very adamant this offseason since the last regime left to take away some of the emphasis on the quote-unquote core four. And that core four includes John Tavares, Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, and William Nylander. And Kyle Dubas made it a point that he was going to keep the core four. Now that that regime is over, now there is a little bit of an idea of, well, what does the future of this group look like? So you look at those core four players. Mitch Marner's contract ends in the summer of 2025. He's making $10.9 million right now. William Nylander is on the final year of his deal. That deal will be up July 1st of 2024. So next summer, he's making $6.962 million on the final year of his deal. John Tavares, his contract ends the same year as Marner in 2 years from now on July 1st of 2025. That's $11 million per season. And of course, the highest paid player on the Maple Leafs, Austin Matthews, making a little over $11.6 million. And he and William Nylander's contracts end both on July 1st of next year in 2024. So that gives you a little bit of context as to why the Maple Leafs would be even considering trading William Nylander, because, well, it kind of sounds like the philosophy is they are not going to re-sign these four players and then say, all right, well, everybody else, well, kind of just throw away pieces. That is not the mentality anymore of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And you could kind of tell with the way the roster's been built, perfect example, other than Kalle Järnkrok, Sam Lafferty, and Matthew Knies up front, everybody else is an unrestricted free agent, which means there is no sort of stability other than that top group of the team. So when you look at their situation, mathematically, if their goal is to build a little bit more depth in the bottom six and even in the top six behind those four players, well, the reality is you're not going to be able to keep all four of those players. Just the money doesn't add up, because at this rate, with what we're looking at, Matthews is probably going to get at least $14 million. I would assume he's not taking a discount. So let's just say on the low end, he's taking $14 million per season on his next deal. You still have another year of John Tavares' deal at 11. You still have Marner's deal, a shade under 11. Where does that have any room for Nylander, who's realistically going to look at somewhere between 8 to 9, maybe even a little more than $9 million per season? The money doesn't add up, and you still have to fill out your defense. You still have to fill out the rest of your bottom six. You still have to have your goalie signed. There's not enough cap space to go around, so they need to get to a spot where maybe someone becomes expendable. And of those three guys, you don't want to trade Matthews. That is a worst-case scenario for the Leafs. He is their superstar. He is their guy. They have to do everything in their power to keep him. So if they don't have the money, that's the first thing that's a concern. And then you get to the point of, well, does he want to sign here? Does he want to sign before July 1st? And then you kind of run down the gambit from there. John Tavares, unfortunately, that's probably the guy you'd look to trade. I just don't know if there's going to be anybody out there. John Tavares' production has quickly declined. He's still a very good player. He's a good guy along the boards, but you could get guys that can win puck battles along the boards for a lot less than $1 million per season. So he's not going anywhere, realistically. Mitch Marner, kind of the same thing as Matthews. I think Matthews and Marner are like worst case scenario. If you had to trade those guys, you're looking at probably a bigger issue there. So that's what you're looking at. And then William Nylander. William Nylander of the core four is the most likely to get traded, as he's, I hate to say the least valuable of the four, but he's also, I would say he's behind Matthews and Marner in terms of his value to the team, but he's not Tavares where he's borderline untradeable. So you have to find that perfect balance, and Nylander kind of offers you that. Now, what's also good about Nylander's deal is he's making under $7 million next season. So for a cup contender or a team that's trying to be a contender, they're going to have the cap space available. So it's not like you're trading for Marner where you have to somehow basically have $11 million of cap space on a good contending team. That's very unlikely to happen. So it kind of takes away a lot of the suitors that are available to you. And with Nylander, too, you're also looking at a situation where you're probably not going to have to retain any salary, which is key for the Leafs because the main reason they're trading Nylander is to free up the cap space. So then comes the question, and the Red Wings fans are saying, where do we come into the conversation? Because the rumors were that apparently Moritz Seider was the main piece in a package from the ask from the Toronto Maple Leafs in any deal involving William Nylander. And we've heard this story before because you guys, if you don't remember, not too long ago, we were hearing about the Arizona Coyotes and what the price tag would be for a guy like Jacob Chychrun. And the rumor was that the Edmonton Oilers were involved in maybe picking up the former Coyotes defenseman, and the price tag would be nothing less than Philip Broberg, who was the Oilers' top prospect. So you kind of see how the parallels are kind of being created here. It's a little bit different because, you know, obviously Philip Broberg is maybe not the talent of Moritz Seider, but it's the same concept. We want your best defenseman for this said player. So what you're kind of looking at here is a situation where the Leafs are trying to get a defenseman on an entry-level contract, and Moritz Seider, that is going to provide you more value than what his actual contract is. And once you get to the point of maybe needing to give him a long-term deal, they can do that because in the next 2 years, when Seider's deal will come up, TJ Brody's money is going to come off the books. You're talking about you can maybe even move Jake McCabe, and there's a lot of uncertainty on the blue line. So if you bring in Mo Seider alongside Morgan Riley, your defense is a lot more solid and actually quite cost effective, at least for the next 2 years until Seider's deal kicks in. So how I kind of look at this situation for the Red Wings is, you know, it makes a lot of sense from the Leafs' perspective. They're getting a cheap defenseman this year. His new contract will kick in next year, so they can do that then. And for the Red Wings, they're picking up, you know, there's been a lot of criticism about some of the depth in the top six, maybe needing a little bit better guys down the middle. And William Nylander can play down the middle. So there's a lot of things that make a guy like Nylander extremely attractive to an organization like Steve Yzerman and the Detroit Red Wings. So in my honest opinion, if I'm the Red Wings, I say no. I hang up the phone from there and I say that is the end of that conversation. And the reason for that is, you know, Mo Seider is probably a cornerstone to that blue line. Now, if the Leafs came to the table and said to me, well, what about Albert Johansson? Well, what about, you know, Justin Wallander? You know, there's a couple of other guys that could be had that aren't named Mo Seider, even on that blue line. And I think that, and even up front, right? A guy like Albert Johansson would be a good addition up front for this team. And I think that's something that you have to consider here because you look at some of the Red Wings prospects, you know, it doesn't have to be a defenseman going in the deal. The Leafs are in a spot here where you could probably move out a guy like Johansson, who I believe is a forward, if I'm not mistaken. And you guys will let me know, I'm sure. But, yeah, so Elmer Soderblom, okay, so this is the group. So if you want a defenseman, if you're the Leafs, right? Simon Edvinsson, William Wallander. Those are the two top guys. Albert Johansson is a defenseman. Okay, so in all reality, you're looking at probably one of those three guys, right? Because I don't think they want to trade Mo Seider. And I think they hate the idea of trading a guy like Simon Edvinsson, but you're looking at a lot more possibility of that happening than trading Mo Seider. I just do not see the Red Wings trading Seider. I really don't. I would be genuinely shocked if they were willing to make that kind of move. But the problem is for the Leafs, they also don't want to bring in a guy like Edvinsson or Wallander. They're 20 years old, no NHL experience. So you kind of get from their perspective, well, we're trying to win a cup now. We don't need prospects. But the idea is you might have to wait. Like, that's kind of how this works. Like, guys like Mo Seider, unless there's a situation where he does not want to sign there in Detroit and they don't have the cap space, that's where you can maybe pounce on a team looking to move a guy like that. Other than that, those guys are not available. It just doesn't happen. And I don't think that's going to be the scenario here either. Now, the question is, what does the value equal out, right? Like, Are the Leafs so dead set on Mo Seider and nothing else, or are they willing to play around maybe and get some kind of package of Alex Duchette, Elmer Soderblom, Cross Honest? Those guys are really good prospects that the Red Wings have. We've heard about Philip Zadina's name up front as well. So, you kind of wonder with some of the younger guys that haven't even played on the Red Wings yet. Guys that are like Marco Kasper. Does that maybe make a guy, say, like a Pia Suter, who might or might not come back? We're going to start to get some confirmation on some of those guys, whether they're going to come back or not. But you wonder if they do end up deciding to move a guy like Zadina, that makes room for Marco Kasper to come up. I'm trying to remember the other young player that they had on the Red Wings. They actually might have traded him, but I thought they had another center that could have been available, but I don't see them here. But that's besides the point. What I'm trying to get to is that if the Leafs are dead set on getting a good young defenseman, they have to be willing to look other than Mo Seider on the Red Wings. Because the good news is there's really good prospects on the Red Wings blue line that could be had. And I think that's kind of the positive side of this, if you're a Leafs fan, is they can make this deal work. It's just you're probably not going to get Mo Seider. And I think if you're willing to take a chance on a William Nylander or a Simon Edvinsson or an Albert Johansson, really coveted left shot defenseman prospects on the Red Wings, I think a deal could be made. And then you start talking about trading the Red Wings first round pick. You start talking about maybe adding a forward prospect and finding a way to make a blockbuster trade for William Nylander. I think it could be worked. It's just both teams need to be willing to make that work and be a little bit flexible. So let me know what you guys think down below. Let me know your thoughts down below. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you again next time.